Pixels. But today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my career progression, how I went from TV into games, and how I'm able to set up my indie studio, and some tips and tricks for those looking to set up your indie studio or trying to get your game off the ground. And then we're going to end it with some Q&A. And I'm an open book. So, okay, here goes. So I started my career way back in 97, 98. While I was still at university, I did an internship for a company called Davis Studios. And originally I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a film director, but I didn't go to film school. It was very expensive. And luckily found my route doing sort of like game marketing trailers and game assets on PlayStation 1 games. I worked on Motocross Mania, then I worked at Codemasters for a game called McRae Rally. And then did kind of just found my way through to do cinematics. So what happened basically, quick story, there used to be a show called E3, which is a big show in the US where, you know, companies go and promote their games and so on. They no longer have that show in LA anymore. And it was a night before, and I was supposed to be, you know, just animating replay cameras for a racing game that we're working on. I broke the editor, and it was in the middle of the night. And what I found was when I broke the editor, I had a floating camera. So I just had like a screen recording software. It wasn't OBS, it was another software. And I just started just moving the camera around as the cars were zipping around, creating these like helicopter shots and stuff. And I just saved it on like the local server. Next morning, someone comes in and just takes the entire folder and takes it to E3. And they're showing all these shots of my camera moving around. And I was like, oh my god, these are great cinematic. It's really cool that this game is on PS1, by the way. It's really great that you can use Bing to encode these really cool cinematics. No one had an idea, like, who created those cinematics, and it was me. So I thought I was going to get fired, obviously, and they were like, no, you're now the cinematics artist. We're going to just create a division just to do cinematics, and we're going to have floating cameras. So I guess the moral of my story is, yeah, as with every game dev is all about trial and error, right? And sometimes these happy accidents, in my case, breaking something could lead to something. So I always say, like, one big tip is like, don't be afraid to break stuff, because sometimes you find some really cool solutions from that. And in my case, I landed a new position as a cinematics animator. And then from there, I ended up working on Battalion Wars for Kuju Entertainment, which is a big Nintendo GameCube game, and then did a stint at Splash Damage via a company called Spov, doing the cinematics for Quake Wars. Then after that, I'm like, why am I making movies in a video game engine? Who does that? Obviously we do that now, but back then I was like, no one does that. So I left the game industry and went to work in visual effects, and I worked at a company called NPC. I worked on shows like Sweeney Todd, Harry Potter, Narnia, and then worked on a show called Hellboy 2. And then I ended up getting this job at Pinewood Studios, where I was involved in previs, where I had to figure out how to block out shots before they were shot for real. You know, things like the truck flipping over, all of that stuff. And I was what you call a post-viz artist, where I would take the wonderful previs done by the animators and take the live action plates, the footage, and comp them together to kind of give an idea of what it would look like. That essentially became my film school. Remember I said earlier I couldn't afford to go to film school? Well, that became my film school. I learned everything from shot composition to editing to understanding how to work with executive notes, understanding about lenses, everything you would need to make a movie I learned. So of course, with all of that, I became a VFX supervisor, where I got to work on the film sets quite a lot, working closely with directors on the film shoots. Became a VFX producer, where I dealt with the numbers and budgeting and scheduling. Then became an EP, an exec producer, where I was much more higher level, dealing with the deals of studios and tax incentives, all of that jazz. I essentially worked through the entire gamut, and that became my education, right up to where I decided to go into directing and producing, where I ended up making my first feature film called The Beyond, which ended up on Netflix, and then another movie called Origin Unknown, starring the lovely Katie Sackhoff, who you may have seen as Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian. And then I got hired by Disney to direct a show and exec produce a show called Fastlane, and for I essentially have just given you my entire career. And then from that point, I was on a roll with live action, and then the pandemic hit. I'm like, oh man, just when I was right at the cusp of my career in live action, the pandemic hit, all live action projects got put on hold. And as a creative, I was just so hungry. I wanted to do more things. I wanted to keep making. I didn't want to wait for the pandemic to be over. No one knew what was going to happen in the world, right? So I decided to learn Unreal Engine. And I picked it up over the weekend. I started putting shots together, just simple ideas. Like, just went onto YouTube and made a list of things I wanted to learn in Unreal. And that's another tip I would give everyone. If you're learning a new tool, don't try to learn the entire tool. No one knows the entire tool. Not even the people that make the tools know the entire tool, right? So not everyone at Epic knows how to do everything in Unreal, right? So for me, as a filmmaker, as a cinematics artist, I'm like, how do I bring an asset in? How do you learn Unreal and install it? But how do you bring a camera? How do you animate a camera? And how do I render out some shots? So the first thing I did was had a couple of cubes, had a camera, move the camera, render the QuickTime. Bring the camera in, close up to the cube, render the QuickTime. I had 3 shots, 2 over the shoulders, 1 wide. Oh my god, I have a sequence. So the next day, how to replace those cubes with a character. So I went onto the marketplace, downloaded some 3 characters. Great, how to add some lights. I started iterating and iterating. By the time I got through the whole weekend, I had known how to load up Unreal, how to bring in the assets, how to move a camera, how to adjust lens, how to put some basic lighting, and how to render them as shots and bring into an editing software and put some music. Oh my god, I made a sequence. And then from there, I started making a little more complicated, more polished short sequences. But here's the thing, guys. I put it online. I just posted on LinkedIn, posted on Instagram, posted everywhere, posted on Facebook. All of a sudden, all these people are adding me on this Facebook group. I'm talking to other Unreal Engine artists, and I'm getting calls by studios. And it was like, wow, I've gone back into video games, kind of, but using video game technology to make movies. And I ended up getting a couple of mega grants from Epic. Those mega grants have now gone a little bit lower, obviously, and harder to get. But back then, there was support in virtual production, supporting independent filmmakers. So there's another tip for you guys. Whenever a new piece of technology comes out or a new thing comes out, jump in it. Go in from the ground up, because that's where the opportunities are. If I tried to apply for a mega grant today, most likely 99.1% won't get one, right? So I was quite lucky. I got 2 mega grants, ended up making an animated feature film called Max Beyond. But also at the same time, I got hired by Rebellion, the games company in the UK, to direct the cinematic trailer for Evil Genius. But the big one came from Funcom. When Funcom called me up and said, hey, we'd love for you to direct the cinematics for Dune Awakening. Only because we've seen your Unreal Engine stuff online, so you clearly know Unreal, but also you come from film and TV, which is exactly what we need to do these cinematics. They're very cinematic, they're very film driven, but also all real time in-game engine, not pre-rendered. So you see here, I started to build a career by taking all of the things that I've done in the past and just kind of make it work together in a time when there was so much uncertainty with my career and let alone the world, right? And then Epic announced this thing called UEFN, which is Unreal Engine for Fortnite. And essentially that meant, I mean, I didn't play Fortnite, why would I need to play Fortnite? I never thought I would. But what was cool is that I can take my Unreal Engine scenes, my cinematics, or my style of work and bring that into the world of Fortnite and make people play that on their PlayStation consoles or anything like that. And I know how hard it is to get your content onto consoles. So I'm like, wait, I can create content that don't look like Fortnite, but on the Fortnite ecosystem, make money on it as well, and deploy it with a click of a button. This is insane. So I did that and ended up making a project called Moontopia, which was a TV animation project I was trying to pitch, and everyone saying no, it's too expensive. Our TV takes a long time to make. I had made the trailer in Unreal Engine 5, so I migrated all the assets from Unreal Engine 5 into Fortnite, and Moontopia launched and became one of the first original third-party IP to come out on Fortnite. And then I applied for another mega grant because hey, Fortnite is hot, UFN is hot, and I got one last mega grant to do another project. And then I got a call from the BBC in Fremantle. And they were doing a show called The Rap Game UK on the BBC. And during the last season, they said, hey, we want to tap into the Fortnite ecosystem. We've seen what you've done. Again, guys, post your stuff online. They would never have reached out to me if they didn't see the Fortnite stuff I was doing, all the stuff I was posting, even the little Fortnite tests I was just posting. And I post a lot on LinkedIn. It's probably why I got a lot of calls from studios, because LinkedIn's a more professional environment, right? As opposed to Instagram and so on. So I got called up to say, hey, can you help us get the audience of Fortnite involved with trying to get their eyeballs onto to watch Rap Game UK? I'm like, well, why don't you do it the other way around? Why don't you get the people into Fortnite? So what we end up doing is we end up taking the last finale, because the idea of Rap Game UK is it's kind of like Eminem's Eminem film 8 Mile, where people battle each other verbally through lyrics and then they reach to the top, right? So I said, why don't we get the last finale, the semi-finalists, come into a motion capture studio, we mocap them, and then we have the finale take place in Fortnite while there's Battle Royale all around that. They're like, don't know what that means, go make it. We did it, it came out early this year, and it ended up getting nominated for a bunch of Webby Awards, and Broadcast Awards, and so on. So my point is, even something like Fortnite, something that is new territory, even the older studio system like BBC and so on are looking to embrace that. So again, post your stuff online, get in from the ground up. If I didn't get into Fortnite in the ground up, it would be very hard to do these projects. Today, if I try to make a Fortnite project and put it out, it's impossible to get any eyeballs, because now it's full of Disney content, full of big branded content. But when I started off, it was very early. So now one of the things I'm looking at is Facebook, or Meta, Horizons. So always get in from the ground up. So anyway, I have a company called Beyond the Pixels. So with all of that stuff you just heard, all that stuff that you saw that I've done on projects and so on, I took all of that and decided to start a company called Beyond the Pixels earlier this year, which is a transmedia company where I'm taking my love of film, TV, and video games, put them together to create new content, which is more direct to consumers. The first project is Astro Burn. Yep, that's a cute kitty cat. And I think Ellie, who's in the Discord group right now watching this, she was one of the first pixel artists that I hired to work on this. And I met Ellie at an event, actually. So again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about networking. Jace covered a lot of that already in her lovely presentation. But definitely meet people, because I would never have found someone as awesome as Ellie doing pixel art on this game. So as you can see from the clips here, it's a space cat. What's there not to love? But one of the things I wanted to do was make a game that was based on my love of video games back in the mid-90s when I was playing a lot of Super Nintendo arcades and so on. And at the same time, there was a TV show in development for the game, hence transmedia. But before I even set up the company, before I even decided to make the video game, I knew I had to start building my audience. I didn't have an audience for my indie game. I had an audience for Fortnite. Sure, I had an audience for my film and TV stuff, but I didn't really have one for my indie project. And I knew that if I was going to do this, especially as an indie developer, I had to start building my audience from day one and started involving community from day one. So a year before setting the company up, I set up a YouTube channel called Beyond the Pixels. And it was all about me talking about retro games and how much retro games inspires my career and my decisions and creative and so on. So when it came to me announcing that I'm making a retro style shoot 'em up, it made sense. My audience, which is now 109,000 subscribers, they all knew. They're like, oh, well, that makes sense. HaZ is making a retro style game, because his YouTube channel was all about that. So this is something about your brand, making your own personal brand so that it becomes recognizable. For me, I'm the Space Cat guy. I love retro games, but also love cinema. So that's a big thing. So grow it on the YouTube channel helped massively. But also, I was creating a bunch of tutorials on how to do stuff, because people kept asking me, how do you do stuff? I'm like, put it on YouTube and everyone could learn, because that's the way I learned on Real. Also, the other thing, as we all know, Discord's a big thing, but even managing a Discord community can be very time consuming. So set it up from day one and keep posting as much as you can, just like with any of these social media platforms. The other thing is, one of the things I did in my game was I put something called attract mode. So you may not have heard of attract mode, or you may have, but you most certainly seen it. So when you go, like the arcades, you go to the arcades or any video game store, you'll see that there's like this demo running, right? That's called attract mode. And usually if that gets triggered if you don't press anything on your controller and it's left on the title page or the start page, it will go into this video footage. Now that is not only cool for events, but it's also cool when you got friends that are influencers or friends that are streaming. So my friend Winbush is really well-known influencer and streams a lot. He had his arcade and he had it in the background. And he just had it running in the background. He must have finished playing it and just left it running. And what's really cool is people like commenting, hey, what's that game behind you? So it's free marketing. It didn't cost me anything. It's just my buddy just happened to have the game running on track mode. So something worth doing on all your indie games is having that stuff. And reach out to your friends that are streaming. Doesn't matter if they only have 2 followers or 10 followers to 100 followers. Doesn't matter. It's all eyeballs. The other thing I'm going to give advice on is, you know, and of course, Jay's covered a lot of this, but for me, I get this question all the time, like, how do you find the time to get out there and market your game? And how much money do you spend? Well, first off, 0, because I'm an indie developer, so 0 money spent on marketing. And I don't have a lot of time. So one thing that I do a lot of, including like doing this session with you guys, is if someone asks me to come on their podcast, it's half an hour, it's an hour, right? And that's an hour of getting someone's attention, a group's attention, whether it's as small as this or as big as the MoGraph.com podcast I recently did, or going into a studio and chatting to Target 3D. This is all PR, self-PR for yourself, but also you're tapping into new audiences and it's cost you nothing. And it's also a really good way to, if you're shy and you don't like doing a lot of this, do really small ones like these ones now, and start building up your confidence, start building up your voice. The thing that I did over the years is built a narrative about myself, built a voice about myself. So now when I go to these events, I can just talk succinctly and just talk from my heart because I love what I do. So that's one thing I advise everyone when you get the opportunity to jump on a podcast. You can it doesn't have to be video, it can just be audio, but it's a really good way to get yourself out there and cost you nothing, but maybe half an hour of your time. Go to events. Now, of course, Jason mentioned events a lot as well, but go to events. And again, you don't need to go to big, massive events like EGX or Comic Con. You don't have to do that. There's a lot of tiny events. This is one by Mayamada, which is an amazing event. And just go to small things. Or if you're going to develop next year, apply for the Indie Brilliant Treasures. They're really cool. And what's great about this is I went to these events very early this year, and I had a very, very rough version of the game. That's another tip I'm going to give you. Don't wait for your game to be perfect. Obviously, don't put it online because it'll get ripped apart. But take it to small events like this where you could give the controller to someone and say, hey, haven't played this. Let me know what you think. Now, here's the thing. Most people won't tell you what they really think unless they are very opinionated. Most people will just be like, oh, that's really nice, cool. So what I do is the value I get at these events is just watch people like a stalker. Just watch people, see what they do. And I noticed in the very first version of the game, people were struggling with the way the bullets were hitting because my collision boxes were too big and it was affecting everything. I was also noticing people were gravitating towards the A button as opposed to the X button for firing. These are things that is gold that you get just by observing people. And so that's why I would say go to as many events as possible, meet other developers, talk to other developers, play other developers' game. What I love about the gaming industry compared to film and TV is there is such a big community vibe about the game industry compared to film and TV, which is can be a little bit closed off sometimes because it's all very producer driven. So definitely go to events, and super, super important to build a community. Lastly, it's a people industry. It takes great people to make games. So try to collaborate with as many people as possible. Talk to other. If you don't have the budget to hire people, just go and meet other people. Go online and don't just talk about yourself, but if you don't have anything to post online, comment on other people's work. I spent a lot of time this morning to say, oh my God, your game looks awesome. Amazing. And they're like, hey, who's this guy? Cool. What's he do? Oh, he makes a game called Astro Burn. All of a sudden, people are checking my stuff out because I'm commenting on their work. So, it doesn't always have to be about shouting about your stuff. Comment about other people. You see here, this is me at an event in September. I was asked by Meta to come over to New York. They pay for it and everything to go and be part of a cohort learning the Meta Horizon thing. This is very earlier on. And you see me, I'm right in the back there. But what's great is everyone on that cohort here are now friends of mine. They're all VR developers, mobile developers, game developers. And it's all about people. So make time to talk to people, whether it's online, in person, and so on, because it really does help. And also, being an indie developer can be lonely. So that's why it's very important to start building a community from day one so that they're part of the journey with you. Lastly, you can actually reach out to me. I'm a very open person. Reach out on LinkedIn, DM me, check out my YouTube channel, which will be on the pixels, and go to my website. So that's it. So now this is where I turn it over to you guys, and I'm sure you guys have tons of questions. Ask me whatever you like.